Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Chairwoman. That was just a lot. And I think it's really important that it's addressed very directly right now and in this moment. First and foremost, I don't want to hear a single person on this committee or outside of this committee talk about valuing life when they continue to uphold the death penalty, when they continue to support policies that disproportionately incarcerate and lead to the deaths of Black men and people throughout this country, and uphold an absolutely unjust medical system that exists for profit that allows people to die because they can't afford to live. In addition to that, if we want to talk about Planned Parenthood, let's talk about how many lives Planned Parenthood has saved and how many babies have been born because of the prenatal care provided by Planned Parenthood. And if you don't believe it, and if you've never met a Planned Parenthood baby, I'm happy to let you know that I am one, and that my mother received and relied on prenatal care from Planned Parenthood when she was pregnant with me. And so if we're concerned about life, we don't get to talk about anyone else who's not concerned about the full spectrum of that when we are upholding policies that kill people. Moving on, I would like to submit some incredible testimony from healthcare providers and champions and advocates from my district right here in the Bronx and Queens. Dr. Heather Irobanda and 3 midwives, Carmen Mojica, Melissa Enama Bear, and Dr. Ann Gibeau, as well as the testimony from one of my constituents, Bruce McIntyre, who, like Mr. Johnson, lost his love and life partner, Amber Rose Isaac.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you so very much. And I want to thank every single one of our witnesses that were here today to share their story, many of which were intensely personal. And it should not be up to us to rely on sharing a trauma that is so personal in order to enact change. The right thing should just be done without having to share and relive these traumatic experiences. But you all have chosen to do so, and I thank you, particularly Ms. Ali and Mr. Johnson, for sharing that and opening your experiences today. So thank you. I'd like to start. Every single one of these medical providers and people who offer testimony to my office as well pointed to social indicators of health. They said, if you want to protect Black women, we need to talk about housing, we need to talk about livable wages, we need to talk about guaranteed access to healthcare. And also when it came to Mr. McIntyre, we need to talk about medical racism, because this isn't just about poverty or education at all. You could have all the access to the resources of the world and still be subject to medical racism within our system. In fact, Mr. McIntyre, with his partner Amber Rose, tried to get family leave approved by their OBGYN, and their OBGYN didn't believe her. And while she saw white women patients at the same income level and opportunities as her do at a later date routinely get approval for FMLA, she didn't, because her pain wasn't believed and her concerns weren't believed. So I know I have just a minute left, but I wanted to ask 2 questions, one on midwives and one on the role of men. So I wanted to ask Ms. Ali, if you felt that perhaps midwifery or doulas, in your experience or in experiences that you've seen in your advocacy, could help stem or be a protectant against medical racism in having that advocate there by your side. And I also wanted to ask Mr. Johnson about how this system is hurting men and spouses as well. So we'll start with Ms. Ali. Thank you.
Thank you for that question and for what you said earlier as well. You gave my heart some rest. In the advocacy work that I've done and in meeting a lot of different midwives, and doulas, they play more than birth worker roles in many cases. They are, in some cases, they're often put in positions where they have to defend the rights to autonomy, the rights of the people they're seeing, their families, their rights to choice. I know the thing is, though, there's this, OBGYN led kind of conversation happening. I know a lot of people where, the doulas don't necessarily have the authority to be able to do what they really can in the hospital. So there's this kind of tug of war that's taking place in the hospital, who, what the patients want, them advocating for the patients, but not really having the power the say so to have their choices be heard, have the patient's choices be heard. I know, I said it in my statement, but the experience I had with my midwife was completely different. It's a paradigm shift in the way that they care for you. My OBGYN, I only saw him 20 minutes every session. He didn't really get to know me and my family or my desires. And when I even talked about natural birthing positions, and when I had questions to that nature, he made a joke and he told me that I could hang from the lights in the delivery room if I wanted to. And when it came to actually birthing, he wasn't even there. He was on vacation. And so midwives have a completely different, it's a totally different modality that it made me feel safe. She made me feel safe. We felt safe with her, even when we had to go to the hospital.
Thank you.
So thank you for that question. And first, let me say thank you for uplifting and centering the story of Amber Rose Isaac and the work of Bruce McIntyre, who is a dear, dear friend of mine. And I draw inspiration from him daily because he is a champion. And so with specificity to your question, I think that this maternal mortality crisis is impacting men in ways that are immeasurable. But I want to talk specifically about the layered roles that racism plays in the lived experiences of Black families, and particularly Black fathers. So in my situation, when my wife was most vulnerable and I was doing everything I could to advocate for her, Kira, at her most vulnerable state, the thing that she kept saying to me as I was getting increasingly frustrated and angry was, baby, just please stay calm. Stay calm. Because Kira knew that if I raised my voice, if I slammed my fist on the table, if I grabbed a doctor by the collar, if I turned over a table, then I would have immediately been seen as a threat as a Black man and been removed from the hospital or the situation. And every single day, I asked myself the question, what is it that I should have done, or what could I have done differently? And that haunts me. Should I have yelled? Should I have screamed? But the reality of the situation, as a Black man, I did not have the same autonomy to raise my voice, scream that a Caucasian father would. And as I look back on April 12th of 2016, the only outcome that I can conceive that could have been worse than what happened to Kira is had I been thrown out of the hospital or detained and then my wife not survived. Mm-hmm. But at bare minimum, I can wake up every day knowing that I was there and I did everything within my power to try and save her.
And you continue to do everything in your power to honor her life and her legacy, and to protect so many other women and their partners and birthing people from having to endure the experiences that you have. So thank you so much.